That countdown music will always get me hype. What it is, Command This Nation. We're about to talk to a gentleman named Taylor from It's Always Sunny in Kansas City. And you know what? Here lately, it's been very sunny in Kansas City, as we've seen with their Lombardi trophies and all this winning they've been doing. Now that we have Eric Bienemy, will it be always sunny in D.C.? We're going to find out here real soon. Coming up next.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for joining us tonight. It is February 27th, Monday live stream. We've done a lot of pre-recorded videos the last few weeks. We're back on our Monday live stream, also doing it Thursday. That was Phil on the intro. I'm your boy, Steve. We got Dev down here with us. And without further ado, let's welcome our boy, Taylor Witt from It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom podcast. Taylor, thank you for joining us, man. Thank you for taking the time out today to sit down and talk with us.
Glad to be here, man. Nice applause. I love it. It's easy for Chiefs fans right now to talk ball. Anybody that wants to bring anybody on that's a Chiefs fan, we're all excited to do it. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's, winning. It's like what's consistently winning.
Nothing better. There's literally nothing
like.
Better. Yeah,
we don't really know what that's like here in DC yet. Hopefully soon. But as we do with all of our guests that come on the show, regardless of what team they're from, who they root for, rival, friend, foe, we want to know, how did you become a fan? So what's your fan story, and how did you get connected to the Kansas City Chiefs?
As easy as it gets. Born in Kansas City, family's obsessed with the Chiefs. Been watching them since my eyeballs could open. So, I've been a Chiefs fan my whole life. I'm 36, and I started off, early '90s was Montana days and Koye and all the fun, early '90s Chiefs. And other than Montana, we never really had a quarterback until our guy now. But it was still a lot of defense, a lot of running the ball, a lot of hard-nosed football. Had some pretty fun years, but nothing quite like the recent run for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And truth in lending, growing up, same way. I'm 42, and I'm a Tech Mobile guy growing up, and the Chiefs were always my AFC team. And it was a little bit of Joe Montana, but Christian Okoye, the Nigerian Nightmare, was the one who really hooked me into becoming a Chiefs. Well, they were like my other team. I was still a diehard Redskins fan, but Deron Cherry, Derek Thomas, there's just Marcus Allen,
Page.
Yeah, there's been a lot of good people come through Kansas City, and I think
Ward.
Yep.
Barry Ward.
Yeah,
he was number 23.
Steve
The Bird.
See, it's funny because I've actually had random interactions online with JJ Burden, of all people, on in YouTube
Burden.
comments.
Good deal.
Merrick Vanover.
Yeah, Vanover, man, he was electric as a returner.
Dante Hall.
Yeah, well, and he
best juke move I ever saw in my life. When he did
at
on
Denver.
Oh my God,
unbelievable!
Man.
I mean, just looked like a video game out there. He was.
It still stands to this day.
Human joystick. He was electric.
I've ever seen.
Absolutely, yeah. We've had some fun players. Obviously, notably Jamal Charles, who's one of the most electric running backs of all time. Eric Bienemy was his coach. Definitely have had some good running back success even before Jamal, with Priest Holmes and Larry Johnson. And it's never been the quarterback until 15 came along. But the other guys were all, they had all pros all over the place. But until you get the right quarterback, it just doesn't seem to work very often.
And we also share Marty.
Absolutely. Share Alex Smith. Got a couple ties between the two teams. Obviously, we were super rooting for Alex. Great guy. Unfortunate what happened with his leg, but big fan of the man for sure.
I mean, technically speaking, we share Larry Johnson too, but we don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, we share him and all of his crazy beliefs, and maybe scored a little bit more often for us than he did for you guys. But yeah.
I secretly think that Patrick Mahomes will be a commander in about 15 years, because Andy Reid just tends to fleece us with these. First it was McNabb, then it was Alex Smith, and hopefully, I'm going to buy my Mahomes jersey maybe next year. pre-stage
it
it
into existence. Yeah.
because Andy Reid will give us a quarterback in probably another 10 to 15 years. But
What's probably going to happen is he's going to groom some backup quarterback that, who's never going to see the field because of Mahomes, but then he'll probably flip him to you guys. But, Andy Reid's, he's a quarterback whisperer. He's gotten a lot out of the quarterbacks now. When he sends them away, maybe they're not quite as good because they don't have Andy there, but he definitely, the stock goes up if you're a quarterback under Andy, that's for sure.
yeah, straight up. So first and foremost, we do want to congratulate you for your Super Bowl victory.
Thanks much.
It was a very close game. We're glad that you beat the Eagles 38-35.
Yeah, correct.
Rooting for you, pulling for you.
Mhm.
So just share your thoughts with us for that game real quick. You were playing one of our division rivals in the NFC East. They were, we were one of the lone teams to beat them
Right.
Mid-season with
Yeah,
Taylor
the only
Heineke
team
at
to
the
beat
helm.
Jalen Hurts. I mean, yeah, that was I remember that Monday night game. That was or was it Thursday? I know it was prime time. I think it was Monday.
It was a Monday nighter.
Right. And the Eagles, as everybody knows, were a nasty football team. Had all pros all over the place, had a quarterback that was playing as good as anyone outside of Arrowhead Stadium. Really had a dynamic team. And I think the connection with Andy and the Eagles, the connection with the Kelsey brothers, there was a lot of stuff that kind of made our two fan bases get along before the Super Bowl even played. We were kind of on the same page with them. So I didn't really have this like hatred or animosity that I would have had towards the Tampa Bay Bucks 2 years ago, or even the 49ers, which the Chiefs don't really have much of a history with, but still, I really, really wanted to beat them really bad the first time. And this one, I obviously wanted the game super badly, but I didn't feel it against the Eagles as much. My thoughts going into the game, I'll tell you, having that one Super Bowl, and I know the Chiefs have two in their history, but the first one was in '69. So having the one in 2019 already in the bag sure takes a lot of pressure off of that game. And the Eagles had one in 17 as well. So I know I talked to some Eagles fans about this too. And, everyone was pretty good vibes going into the game. It was all kind of, let's see who the best team is. And Vegas had the Eagles. They were stacked on the defensive line, stacked on the offensive line, really, really great football team. And I just thought if the Chiefs don't get steamrolled, if they can go out there and hang with them, obviously I like our chances then at the end. So I was just hoping to keep them within arm's reach, and it looked like for a bit that was not going to happen, but fortunately they
halftime.
Ball slipped right out of Hurts' hands, man. That's what ended it for him.
Yeah, that's right. That drive there, got a defensive score when you're already down 7 and they've got the ball. Massive change of momentum there. So that was,
by the way, that was a face mask, by the way.
Face mask on who? Which one?
On Kansas City, whatever Hurts fumbled that ball for the touchdown. Face mask.
They got him in the face mask? I didn't even see it.
Watch the play. It's crazy. But hey, I'm glad it happened.
Yeah.
It's funny because the same thing worked for us when we beat the Eagles.
Got a face mask that wasn't called. That's right. On a defensive touchdown, right?
It was we got the ball like deep in their territory.
Yeah.
And
it just fell right out of his hand too. That's what's crazy. Like it just fell straight out of his hand, and dude had his whole face mask.
It was right around the time, right before the game, is when all the script stuff started coming out, and
of course,
and
Arian Foster,
Mahomes, the conspiracy theorist. Mahomes,
and he was sarcastic during that bit, but
people took it and
they clipped it when he wasn't being sarcastic. He didn't laugh. He didn't laugh after the clip like he did on the show. So
and then there was just a series of tweets from NFL players saying, "When I saw the script for this year or that year,
when I got hurt, that was one of the better Twitter interactions.
Mahomes in the game, it was the Bengals game where was that with the game he really rolled his ankle really bad.
The Jags game, the week.
I'm sorry, the Jacksonville game.
Yeah, the division round, the first quarter of the first playoff game in a year that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Their MVP quarterback gets a high ankle sprain in the first quarter, and I mean, we were just hoping and praying that it wasn't going to knock him out of the playoffs. And while it didn't knock him out of the games, other than one drive, it certainly hindered him. And he was moving around on that first drive and looked as locked in as we've ever seen him. And then after that ankle sprain, he was just gutting through it. But, winners win. He found a way.
Yep. Real quick, just want to say what's up to Marcus Edlin. Thank you for joining us, Marcus.
What's up, Marcus?
Go check out Sports View 2 on Facebook. That's his sports group. Always supporting, always showing love. What's up, Marcus? Thank you for joining.
Hardest working man in showbiz.
That's right. And I will say that I think it was the Bengals game. He was still kind of little tender.
Oh yeah.
The
he
last
was hobbling
scramble
around
of the game, he looked like he had zero issues with that ankle.
Sure.
And I was like, it's the script. It's the script,
Yeah.
But he looked good, and we are yearning for that here in DC. If you've seen the running joke about the number of quarterbacks we've dealt with over the last 30 plus years since our last Super Bowl in '91, there's people make jerseys of it, and it's just
right. Not quite the Browns level, but pretty close. I mean, you're getting up there.
Pretty darn close. Went through 5 in 1 year. Jay Gruden's last year, I think 4.
Right.
But we're here to talk to you about Eric Bienemy, your former offensive coordinator, our new offensive coordinator and assistant head coach. And so we're just trying to get a sense of what was life like pre Eric Bienemy on the Chiefs, and then what was life like for you guys and for the team after he arrived, because I know he's been with Andy Reid for a long time.
Since 13, since Andy got to Kansas City. I mean, yeah. Okay. So the very first year Andy got here,
so they came together.
He hired Bieniemy off of Colorado, who he had gone back to. He obviously played at Colorado, and then went back there to coach. And Andy's first coaching group, that after he got to Kansas City, he wanted Bieniemy as his running backs coach. So that's when Eric Bienemy got here. Before then, obviously the Chiefs had some running back success, as I talked about with Priest Holmes, Larry Johnson, some of those guys, Okoye even going back. But Bieniemy is a big culture guy, really, really big on accountability and on finishing plays and finishing practice, finishing drives. Every mic'd up you've ever heard from him, every press conference, he's always preaching kind of the same core principles. He even said most of them in the opening pressers with Washington. Just a really, really focused individual, more than probably any other coach I've seen, even including Andy Reid. Just really locked in, really businesslike. The 5 years that he was the running backs coach featured heavily with Jamal Charles, and Jamal's one of the most electrifying NFL players there's ever been. He could hit a home run at any moment. He was a track guy at Texas, and Bieniemy really kind of honed in his more like running back skill type of thing. Jamal was always fast, but to be an NFL running back, you've got to have the vision, you've got to have power, you've got to be, a lot of the stuff that made Jamal successful, he credited directly with EB and with just the coaching that he got once he got to Kansas City. And so that was probably Eric's biggest impact before he became the head or the offensive coordinator in 18. And then the Chiefs obviously drafted Mahomes in 17, had the last year with Alex Smith, and then moved on and installed Mahomes into the offense in 18. And along with him, Matt Nagy and Doug Peterson had both recently gotten head coaching jobs as the Chiefs offensive coordinator the previous couple years with Alex Smith. And so Eric Bienemy, who had been the running backs coach for 5 years, was elevated within the coaching staff and became the offensive coordinator. And the Chiefs immediately went out, and Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns and won MVP and was a breakout star in the NFL. And that was Bienemy's first year as an offensive coordinator. And from there, the Chiefs just never really let up on offense. They struggled at times on defense, and they struggled with some other random things, as every NFL team does. But the one consistency with the last 5 years under Mahomes and Andy Reid has also been Eric Bienemy and the offense. And so life after Eric Bienemy took over is really hard to extrude for us from Mahomes' life, because that's the same 5 years. And so there have clearly been, the Chiefs have one of the most prolific offenses in NFL history over the last 5 years. Right. And EB's got his fingerprints all over that. Now, we had some questions while he was here because the Chiefs were a little vague about exact roles and exact game day decision making and play calling and that type of stuff. It usually seemed like Andy would take the bullet if something went wrong and say he was calling plays, and then if things were going well, he would say, well, that was all the coaching staff and all EB. And I think that's mostly Andy just being a good leader. But as fans that wanted accountability when things went wrong and wanted to know kind of what was going on behind the scenes, it was really hard for us to get a clear picture of responsibilities. Mm-hmm. And I think, if I were to guess, that led somewhat to the lack of head coaching opportunities for Eric over the last couple of years, other than the overt, racist stuff that's been going out with, black head coaches. And, you look at the coordinators that have been to the Super Bowl since Bieniemy came here in 18. You've got Zach Taylor, Josh McDaniels, Kevin O'Connell, Shane Steichen, all white guys, all got head coaching jobs.
Right.
You've got Brian Callahan, who, even though he didn't get a coaching job, he was 2 finalists for Arizona and Indianapolis this year. He was just last year with Cincinnati. And the only guy that's been a coordinator in a Super Bowl since then that hasn't gotten a head coaching job besides for EB is Byron Leftwich, another black guy. So,
yep.
The NFL is definitely the ownership group is a tight knit group of guys that are billionaires and make their decisions how they can. But certainly, I think that has had something to do with it. But the other element to it is just the lack of understanding of what Eric was up to calling plays.
Right.
So piggybacking off of that, and it's funny because for all the things that have gone on in this franchise, we probably have the most Neapolitan coaching staff out there.
Absolutely.
With having a Latino head coach, a black offensive coordinator. And
I love Ron, by the way. Big fan of Ron. Love everything he's done. He's an Andy Reid guy as well, so I've been rooting for him since his Carolina days. So big fan.
Yeah, and then we have a white guy named Del Rio as our defensive coordinator.
Sure,
we're not sure on him.
No,
but
nobody is.
But anyway, there's this weird thing where it's apparently Bieniemy is a love him or hate him with players. How true is that? Just rumor and conjecture, or is it a case of he really does because he's a hard coach? Some guys love him and some guys hate him. I mean, is it really that way, or is that just got overblown?
So I paid quite a bit of attention to that. There's one guy that I could point to that has spoken poorly of Eric Bienemy. Shady McCoy, absolutely. Yep. And he obviously has his platform on Speak and came out last week or whenever it was. Yeah. And, said some stuff about EB that frankly, every Chiefs player that saw that I saw quote tweet it, disagreed with him, just flat out, from guys like Jamal Charles and Tyreek Hill to, I mean, your backups and guys that, they don't have a huge platform or anything, but I just saw over and over again, nah, that's not true. Sorry, Shady, you're wrong about this. Just tons of quote tweets, tons of Chiefs players that came to EB's defense. Mahomes has obviously been a huge EB proponent, both, publicly with his comments and just their relationship was interesting because they'd jaw at each other. They'd get into some sideline stuff. EB once famously called Mahomes a competitive prick in one preseason interview. But at the end of the day, when you ask them both about their relationship with each other, it was great. It was fantastic. They just said that he pushes me. He's competitive. When we're yelling at each other on the sideline, we both know that it's just out of love and a desire to win and stuff like that. So point being, I haven't seen anybody outside of Shady have anything negative to say about their time playing with Eric Bienemy. But the one note of Shady's criticism was he complained that Bienemy would yell at everyone, even the stars like Travis Kelce. And clearly Shady, by the time he got to Kansas City, considered himself a star. And I don't think he liked getting yelled at. And, I mean, that's kind of a soft mentality. And that's kind of something that I don't think many people are sympathetic with him for feeling like that. But no, I'm not a believer at all that Bienemy is a love him or hate him guy. I think he's a love him guy.
That's that culture thing that you're talking about. No one's 100%. above the law, right?
No.
Everyone's treated equal under coach's eyes, and
got to stay accountable. Yeah.
And I was listening to you guys had I want to say it was not last podcast, but the previous podcast. You talked about Eric Bienemy in depth, in detail, coming over to Washington, and I don't know if you guys got to catch all of his introductory presser he had.
I watched it.
In the comments afterwards, Terry McLaurin, he's our top wide receiver, top dog.
Scary Terry.
He was like, "Hey, coach, I don't mind being coached hard. You can coach me hard. We need that." And then Eric Bienemy was like, "Yeah, we just need y'all to get a little more nasty." Mm-hmm. So we're hoping that's the kind of the stuff he can bring, to our team. Go ahead.
He's got an attitude. He absolutely does. He has a competitive attitude. It doesn't let guys get away with stuff. And it doesn't mean that he is not, that they don't love him and they don't, love working for him and stuff like that. But it's a war out there, and you've got to have accountability, and you've got to have somebody, even if it's not the head coach, you have to have some voice in the room that keeps guys honest and keeps them focused. And when things are bad, which the Chiefs have been down famously quite a number of times, especially in the playoffs. They've had 4 double-digit comebacks in the playoffs under Mahomes. And I mean, each one of those, I always obsessively watch the mic'd ups and all the, the sideline stuff. And EB is the constant voice of positivity. Right. And I mean, I really have nothing but glowing reviews of his time in Kansas City. And I think we're really going to miss him.
That's awesome. Hey, Cody Jones from Facebook. Thanks for joining us. My boys finally caught y'all live. Got a 1.5 hour drive home. Take me home. I don't think we'll be going that long, but Cody, Thanks for tuning in. Go ahead, Phil.
Who knows? But anyway, so to kind of go back, you were talking about that it was very vague as to how involved Bieniemy was with, play calling and things like that. You have been able to see the difference between the pre-Bieniemy offense that Andy Reid was running and then when Bieniemy. How much of a shift was there? What is Bieniemy bringing his offense, or is this going to be Is this going to be somewhat of an Andy Reid philosophy, but Bieniemy's got his fingerprints all over it, so it's changed? Or is this a case of he's an Andy Reid guy, he's going to bring Andy Reid's offense here? Or as opposed to you think he's going to install his own offense that probably has a lot of the principles that he developed in Kansas City as an offense coordinator?
It's a fascinating question. And I think that my gut feeling tells me that he was so successful for the last 5 years running, an Andy West Coast system that I mean, he almost couldn't help but bringing a lot of that over just because that's been his bread and butter. But at the same time, he's not afraid to voice his mind, and he's got his own ideas about offense. And he frankly has a different set of offensive players in Washington than he had in Kansas City. And so adaptability is something that we've certainly seen from the Reid coaching staff, including EB in his time here. The offense under Alex Smith had to be different than it was later under Patrick Mahomes, just with the skill set differences there. And one thing I always point to is when the Chiefs drafted Tyreek Hill, they understood that they had a burner unlike anybody else had in the NFL, and they hadn't really been going deep very often, and they immediately started throwing rainbows with Alex Smith. And I mean, it was a slap in the face immediately, like, oh, this offense is completely different. But it was different because they had different personnel, and they were smart enough to use that new personnel in ways that maximize their success. So I think if I were to guess that EB is going to go in and he's going to bring a set of concepts that he knows works, basically are personnel proof, and that they're more of concepts of getting guys open in space and that type of like Andy Reid footprint for an offense. But then I don't think he's afraid to modify some things and look at skill sets. Like McLaurin's a guy that the Chiefs certainly haven't had in EB's time.
As a coach should do. It's not a cookie cutter solution. You have to tweak your system to fit your players' strengths. We don't get that a lot around here.
Well, and a lot of NFL teams, frankly, don't. It's a skill by coaches that, Andy Reid's teams have been lucky enough, the Eagles and the Chiefs, that he understood changing his offense to fit his players. And every time he ran an offense, he wouldn't put guys in positions not to succeed. That was always his hallmark. And I mean, I obviously don't know all the conversations that happened between EB and Coach Reid, but if I were to guess at the number one takeaway, the adaptability and versatility has got to be right up there. So I think that we're all in Chiefs Kingdom. We're all excited to see what kind of offense EB runs. And we are all frankly very much rooting for his success, because we want to be proven that, Chiefs fans have been clamoring for him to get a job. And you don't see that a lot with fan bases with a coordinator that they like, wanting them to get a shot somewhere else. But it was way beyond time. If you look at the coordinators that have gotten head coaching positions and their resumes, I mean, EB would have 2 Super Bowl wins and the highest scoring offense over a 5-year period in NFL history already on his resume, going to another job. So, I mean, that would be far and away, the most accomplished offensive coordinator that hasn't been a head coach yet. So we've all been rooting.
So, and one last question, kind of to piggyback off all that too. So, Coach Ron, now he may be smoke screening us. He wants a ball control offense. He really wants to grind it out. Now, I don't think the Chiefs ever had a 1-2 punch in their backfield like a Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson.
No.
So it's hard to say, but and EB is a former running back, and he was a small guy, but he was a real between the tackles
bowling ball
kind of runner too. He was a little bowling ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the question is, have you seen anything out of Bieniemy's play calling and play design that makes you think that, he could adapt to a ball control offense pretty easily?
I think he wants to, certainly. I think Andy, both his offensive style and his personnel have maybe not made that the easiest over the years, over the 10 years that EB's been here, to be a ball control offense. That's really hasn't been the Chiefs' style, but you hear it in his voice, you hear it in the comments he makes, you hear it when, if the Chiefs would end the game and rushed for 160 yards at 7 yards a clip, and they would say, what worked well for you? He would be on the moon, and he would be talking about how, like, well, we ran the ball, duh. Like when you run the ball well, you win games. Like he very much is a proponent of running the ball. And if you have that type of Gibson and Robinson combination there, that you have the horses in the backfield that can do it, and you combine that with not having a mega superstar at quarterback, I mean, I think Washington would be fools not to try and implement a run heavy offense, at least in the first little bit, to kind of give Howell, kind of some breaks in there and not throw everything at him right away, and ride those running backs. They're both really, really good. And yeah, so I do think that EB wants it. And I'd be surprised if he goes in there throwing the ball all over the yard.
Right. And welcome Greg Delaney from Facebook, our boy Greg. He says Washington needs a tight end for Eric Bienemy and Sam Howell, kind of alluding what you were talking about. And that's my next point is we don't have the exact model as Kansas City has with
Ain't nobody does, but yes, you're
we
right.
don't have an all-pro and Travis Kelce. We have some talent. They're battling some injuries. We don't know what our tight end room looks like. We had Logan Thomas, but once he tore his ACL, he hasn't been the same. We don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. But are the tight ends, well, with Kelce, clearly he's a huge part of this offense. So I'm trying to struggle and figure out what are we going to do with the lack of that?
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
I think we make up for it in other ways. I think we're better at running back. I think we're better at receiver.
Yeah.
I think we're deeper at running back and receiver. We need to get better on the line, obviously.
Yeah. The Chiefs, the adaptability is a reason that Travis Kelce was the number one target in the offense, because he was the best player they had. And so if the Chiefs, instead of trading away Tyreek Hill last year, if they had traded away Travis Kelce, God forbid, but if they had done it, I mean, I think they would have adapted their offense. Instead of being a 3 tight end heavy, they ran tight ends all over, not just Kelce, but their second and third tight ends this year got a ton of run in the offense as well. And that's just because that's the way their personnel shook out this year. They signed Juju and they signed MVS and they kind of brought some guys in, but they certainly were not to the level that, you would want the number one offensive scoring team in the league to have at wide receiver. Certainly not like McLaurin. And so I think when EB gets there, some of these play concepts that are designed for Kelce are wide receiver concepts. Kelce splits out wide all the time, more than any other tight end in the league. And that's because he has the skill set to do it. And yeah, he reads defenses better than anybody, and he finds soft spots in the zone better than anybody. And he has a connection with Mahomes that's unbelievable. But the concepts are still, lots of rub routes, lots of different stuff that is designed to get guys in space and easy pitch and catch from the quarterback. A lot of haters looked at Mahomes' level of separation that he threw to wide receivers or to receivers this year, and it was massive. I mean, he always had yards and yards of separation between him and his target, and that's not because his wide receivers were burning everybody. That's not because Juju and MVS and those guys were wide open. It's because the offense was designed to get him the right looks at the right places that he can throw to somebody that doesn't have anybody around him. And that's the type of design that any offense in the league can implement. If you've got the coaches to do it and you've got the play design, capabilities, you can scheme guys open. Now, are they going to take it to the house? Are they going to do all the crazy athletic stuff? That's one thing, but getting them the ball is something that I think EB's going to be really good at.
And I think cracking the code on Ron Rivera, I don't think you have to look that far than just look at Andy Reid. So certainly, Ron Rivera is a loyal guy, but I believe he gets that from Andy Reid. Andy Reid is loyal to
sometimes to a fault, but yes,
guys.
Loyal, absolutely.
And same with Ron Rivera. So Ron Rivera came from the Andy Reid tree in '99 when Reid took over the Eagles. Ron Rivera was his, I think, linebackers coach at the time. Then he became a coordinator in Chicago and then on to Carolina. And I believe he's grateful for that start under Andy Reid. And Eric Bienemy made a comment during the press conference that somebody asked him, when did you know you were going to be the offensive coordinator of the Commanders? He was like, well, we've been dealing with a lot of stuff the past 2 weeks, if you haven't noticed, but I've known for a hot minute, this is where I was going to go. So that just tells me that him and Andy Reid are still close. They're still tight. And
he had an interview with What's the guy that used to be Shanahan's buddy in Denver now?
That
I
used
don't
to
know.
be Shanahan's buddy.
Yeah, he used to be his reporter, and he broke famous by making. You know what I'm talking about, the guy that everybody follows.
Oh, McDaniels? Or wait, no. The reporter?
ESPN dude. Yeah.
Schefter?
Yeah, Adam Schefter. Yeah.
Schefter. Sure.
He had
I
an interview with
wouldn't even have
Schefter
thought of him
today.
as a buddy with
Right.
that's
He had an
He
interview
was.
with Schefter. He had an interview with Schefter today, Bieniemy, where he said, "Hey, you know, he knew before the season that he wasn't going to go back to Kansas City. Like
Yeah.
he had already had the discussion.
signed consecutive one-year
that he was
deals
gonna leave.
last year
Yeah,
and the year
that he was gonna
before.
leave.
Oh, so maybe we knew the script was in play before.
Sure.
Another
Right.
another funny idea to think about though is that everyone had filled their spots, so to say, for offensive coordinators and coaches, right? And Kansas City, he's out of contract. If Washington didn't pick Eric Bienemy up, where would he have went?
Yeah, he would have been a free agent, and there would have been
No-
nowhere
none of the
to
jobs.
go. And maybe somebody sees him on the market and fires their guy or whatever. But you're right. I mean, I think
I tell you,
had Washington
another funny
figured
thing
out.
about it is that Eric Bieniemy's, I think, had a longtime friend, the guy that's the GM of the Bears, right? I think they were like either
Ryan Pace. He was a Kansas City guy.
Yeah, and he said
Yeah, he was
that
in the
guy he
offense.
didn't even give Bieniemy an interview.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he didn't even like, and that's why I think a lot of people saw that and was like, wait a minute, this is like his close friend. He didn't even give him an interview.
Well, the interview thing's really interesting because
I think he already knew he was coming to Washington.
he might have. And EB over the years interviewed 18 times for a head coaching position.
Saw that.
And people would say, well, is he not a good interviewer? What are these owners and front offices? They bring him in, and then is he just the token Rooney Rule interview, and they had no intention of hiring him, or what's the story there?
He's an affirmative action hire.
I mean, there's people
what they
definitely,
said,
they come up with all kinds of reasons why stuff like this happens, and I mean, I hear Eric when he does pressers, and I think he's incredibly well spoken and smart, and certainly knows his ball, and I mean, he had some minor stuff go on, legally back when he was a player in Colorado. Nothing that would concern me at all, but just stuff that people kept saying, well, maybe it's his past. Maybe it's, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But at the end of the day, I think he just, he got a good opportunity here in Washington to show, his chops as both a play caller and, the assistant head coach title is an important title. I mean, that's a responsibility move that Washington, they showed him a lot of love there. And they said that, we want you to be more than just the coordinator. We want you to be helping out with everything that that a assistant head coach can help out with. And I think he's ready for that role. I think it's basically a dress rehearsal for head coach, whether that's with Washington after Rivera leaves or, with another team. I do think that, or gets promoted, I mean, I think that a lot of stuff could go down there, but I think EB's well positioned for a future job.
And that assistant coach job used to be Jack Del Rio's, by the way.
Right.
And now it's Eric Bienemy. My last question. Now I know Phil's isn't that question. Is the Kansas City Chiefs a coach-centric organization? Does he run the show? Does he get the power with personnel selection, or is that a GM driven down?
So GM Brett Veach was an Andy Reid guy starting as a scout in Philadelphia.
Okay,
and so he was with him in Philly. He came to Kansas City as a scout, and then when John Dorsey was the GM here, and I mean that was over Andy Reid, and made some decisions, and they had solid teams. But the draft of Patrick Mahomes, even though John Dorsey was technically the GM, that was Brett Veach banging down Andy Reid's door saying, you got to draft this guy. This is our guy. This is, Brett Veach was kind of the Mahomes #1 super fan in Arrowhead. And I think they rewarded him accordingly. I think when it worked out that well, they said, okay, you're right. You obviously know your stuff. We're going to go ahead and promote you to GM. All that is to say that I do think Brett Veach makes a lot of good and smart decisions, but he's also so tight with Andy that it's hard to separate them. And it's hard to say that anything that if Veach gets a call that he's not going to say, hold on, let me talk to coach before I make this decision. I mean, that's just kind of the respect that they have. That's the way it goes. I think Andy certainly has as big of an impact on that team as any one person. And Yeah. So coach centric for sure. If I had to give it a designation of some kind.
That's our blueprint. That's all I
Yeah.
wanted to confirm.
Yeah.
We are almost following the Andy Reid model, which is
Sure.
a good model to follow.
It's a great model. It's worked out really well for us. It
Yeah.
worked out really well for Philly. You know, I mean,
Yep.
they got one Super Bowl appearance, but they went to tons of NFC Championship games. They won a ton of games. They kind of, I feel like, are kicking themselves for kicking him to the curb back in 12 when they did. But yeah, it's a good model.
That's right. We were fine with them bringing in old Chip.
Yes. Yeah, Chip Kelly. That's right, man.
And then Doug Peterson, but
yeah. Well.
But here, so let me ask this question. So, and obviously we just talked about the Chiefs seem to be a very coach-centric organization. We're a very coach-centric organization. Bieniemy now has full reign and run of the offense. He has control of the play calling. He has control over personnel matters. I mean, he's going to get that kind of control.
Certainly a big say. Even if he doesn't pull the final lever, he'll be right in there in the room. Yeah.
What does he bring in that regard? Because I assume that he probably at least had some hand in this in Kansas City. I don't think he was just in there diagramming plays and handing it all to Andy for Andy to make the decisions.
Right.
But I think he had a greater hand. At least I would think so.
You know,
what does he bring in that regard?
I think this is one of those questions that, I mean, as much as we try and as much as the reporters dig and as much as everybody asks around about who's doing what, the Chiefs are just a hard nut to crack on that type of stuff. And they tend to, right? I mean, yeah, it is. It's kind of the Bill Belichick approach. Like, that's the one that I think when Andy looked at what was successful in New England, one of those approaches was, we don't got to tell anybody anything that we don't have to tell them. And, you know, Andy's very quick to accept blame for things that, in my opinion, probably are not always his fault. Anytime anything goes wrong, whether it was a personnel failure or a play failure or a game management failure, whatever it was, always falls back to Andy. And then when there are successes, he's the first one to be saying, well, really, the guy you got to thank is X, or the guy you got to thank is Y. Like, he's just that's just his model. And so when it comes to stuff like what did Eric Bienemy do specifically, all we can rely on as the outside observers are what the players have said, what they've said in pressers, what they've alluded to what's been going on. But obviously we're not in there. We don't know. So I know for sure that the players credit EB unprompted a lot, credited over the last 10 years. If a concept would come along and a player would be asked about it, or like what happened on that play or something like that, you know, the number of times that they would say, yeah, I mean, Coach EB told us that would be open, or we knew going into this week, EB said this thing is going to be a slam dunk, like stuff like that. Little elements that they didn't have to say. They could have just said that was the play design, but they specifically called out EB on it. I noticed that stuff over the years, and, you know, there was a ton of love that was given to Andy on similar types of answers. But in general, I think that the Chiefs were proud of Eric Bienemy. They were proud of his contributions to the team. They were proud of the things that worked, that had his fingerprints all over it. They were the ones that they wanted to tell you about it. They wanted to say, like, yeah, this guy that nobody's been hiring, this guy's been drawing up dynamite plays for us for years. The guy that every time he goes out to interview, he comes back to Kansas City. We're happy to have him, but like, we want him to go flourish and go be his own man and stuff like that. And I mean, you saw that, I think, boil up over the last, I would say, 2 seasons. The first 3 years he was the offensive coordinator, I think the Chiefs were, you know, just very fortunate and lucky to have him. But then as they kind of realized, like, man, all these coaches are getting jobs other than him, and he's trying and he's talking to guys and it's just not working. I think you saw it in all of the interviews that everybody was rooting for him to go pick up a promotion somewhere.
It seems like Andy Reid subscribes to a philosophy, and I got the exact quote. This is a quote from Ronald Reagan that says, "There's no limit to the amount of good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit."
Absolutely.
That is, you know, a true leadership thing. And it's funny because we see a lot of that with Ron too. Like, Ron is real quick to give credit to everyone else when things go well. It's not a me show, but, you know, reporters try to get on Scott Turner and get on Martin Mayhew and get on about Carson Wentz and then get on Carson Wentz as well. And we watched him stand there and say, no, that was me. I did it. I was the one who had the film. I'm the one who took the numbers to the GMs and all this. And
it's a character thing. Like that's just, if you're a guy of character, you're going to take bullets for guys because you know you can, and you know that you're going to be a better unit. You're going to be a better family because of it. I mean, that's clear as day in both those guys.
Unless you're Ronald Reagan, then you just say Oliver North did it.
That's right. Yeah. That's fair.
Well, I'm curious to see what the odds of the Commanders, going to the Super Bowl were after the season ended, and see if the line flipped a little bit more now that we have Eric Bienemy. And then after the draft,
get a new owner.
I'm sure, and then we get a new owner, might flip again, and then there's a draft, might flip again. But
sure.
I got it. I'm gonna go back and research and see if I can find out what the odds were. But speaking of odds, we're gonna give you guys a quick tip on how you can get some money. Stay tuned. The action never ends at DraftKings Sportsbook, especially this summer. With tons of ways to bet on all your favorite sports, you can fuel your fandom and feel the heat of the season like never before. Plus, right now, DraftKings Sportsbook is giving new customers a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's right. Make your first bet up to $1,000, and if it doesn't win, you'll get another shot to cash in. You can throw down on all the major action for baseball, golf, MMA, and more, plus same-game parlays, spreads, money lines, over-unders, and props. Your betting options feel endless. Now that football's over, it's now on to the NBA and Major League Baseball. That's right. That's what I'm looking forward to. But best of all, DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. You can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TPPN. Make your first deposit and get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code TPPN. Tango Papa Papa November. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. And we're back. And if you're just joining us now, we are joined by Taylor Witt from It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom podcast. He's been giving us his point of view and what life is like as a Chiefs fan, winning the Super Bowl, and with Eric Bienemy as offensive coordinator. We have some really good dialogue so far and on what we think we can expect from Eric Bienemy as our offensive coordinator. Phil, go ahead.
Oh, no. I mean, I'm just kind of following up on everything. I mean, I've got a lot of info that both kind of confirms, but it makes you feel better about the chemistry of the hire just because of the fact that it seems like Bienemy's walking from a specific situation to a very similar situation just in terms of how the coaching staff and the front office operate and so forth. Now,
should be a good transition.
Yeah, it's a culture fit.
Transition.
And I don't think he would have gone somewhere that wasn't a culture fit. I think, he, even though, some would say he was desperate to get a job just based on all the interviews and stuff, like he clearly knew his own value and knew that if he was going to leave the Chiefs, which was a great situation, that he was going to go somewhere that was a good fit for him culturally. And certainly I think he found that in Washington.
And our boy Oscar from YouTube joining us. Oscar Urbina says, the conversation Terry McLaurin had with Bienemy is exactly what the Commanders need. We had our show last week talking about this press conference. We did a full reaction. We played the video and we kind of gave our thoughts. And my comments was like, I feel like Eric Bienemy is going to reunite this fan base because we've been kind of divided here for a while. If you look at all the nonsense we've been going through. Oscar also says, I feel like our Super Bowl is getting a new owner. DC should have a parade. Yes, but we have higher standards. That will just be a step off point to hopefully a winning football season.
That would be some wins. Snyder era crap, right? No. I'm sorry. That would be some Bruce Allen level crap right there because that's winning off the field.
Yeah. It'll be a big step though, but not a parade.
Yeah.
But so your new offensive coordinator,
Matt Nagy. Yep.
Matt Nagy.
Are they going to give him? Is he just going to step in and just do the exact same things as Bienemy, or does this roll a little differently now?
Well, great question. He has a history with the Chiefs, and was offensive coordinator here before he went to take the Bears job, and then came back here last year and was a quarterback's coach. And I think a lot of the problem. It's not really a problem, but the thing about coaches under Andy Reid is that it's still his show, and it rightfully should be. He's clearly shown that it should be his show, but
he calls all the plays, right?
Well, so that's
for the most part.
That's the question. So we always, he talks about calling plays, but then some games they'll get over with the game, and he was like, "Oh yeah, EB took over the second half," or EB called that drive or something like that. So it's not always Andy, but it's not really clear when it's Andy and when it's not. And he doesn't always. It's not like he just takes over in all the big moments either. It's just kind of. I think maybe it might be like a matchup thing. Like if they know the types of plays that they're calling, maybe one coach or the other is like more comfortable with that drive type. I don't know. I honestly wish I knew, but as far as responsibilities go, I think we're all still waiting to kind of see if anything will be different with Nags, see if he wants to run the ball more, run the ball less, do more screens, do more play action. What kind of fingerprint does he have on the offense that EB ran for the last 5 years? So I wish I knew, but till we get out there, at least in the preseason, but probably not till the Bullets are actually live, I don't think we'll know.
And he got credit for that one play design where they brought the running back in motion from behind, and then it was supposed to get picked up by the Philadelphia safety. He didn't, because they ran it in the previous game before, right? Didn't Eric Bienemy get credit for that play design and pickup?
Corn Dog is the name of the play, which is a very Andy Reid name, was a Doug Peterson play with the Jags in that monsoon game they played against the Eagles earlier this year, where you've got a wide receiver out wide. He jet motions over, but instead of motioning all the way across the formation or getting a handoff, he just stops his motion and cuts back outside. He does a corner drag, which is how they got Corn Dog. And the Eagles rock and roll that coverage, and instead of running a guy all the way in man, they pass off the coverage to whoever's over there to try and get him to the spot, beat him to the spot. And they beat him one time. The Jags ran it one time for a touchdown, and that was the only time anyone ran it against the Eagles this year. And the Chiefs coaching staff, and yes, EB was given a lot of love for this, but I don't know if he actually installed it or if he was just the one that noticed it on film, or how really the responsibilities broke. But I do know that that play got the Chiefs 2 wide open touchdowns in the Super Bowl. I mean, it was as big of a coaching advantage between the Chiefs and the Eagles as there was all day on any matchup, was that one play that they ran on 2 consecutive drives for 2 wide receivers in opposite ends of the field, both in out, both wide open touchdowns. So yeah, I do think EB had a lot to say in that.
We could only hope for something like that. Marcus says, right now, Andy Reid is the best coach in the NFL. I concur.
I'd argue.
Can't argue. And Chris McDaniel, our boy Chris from YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Always supporting the show. Says, I'm just excited Scott is gone. EB couldn't be any worse than that, and I don't think he will. I think we succeeded a lot in spite of Scott Turner in a lot of the stuff.
We had a situation where we had an offense that became functional because the backup quarterback was so limited. He actually managed to negate our offensive coordinator's worst tendencies because he couldn't do the things our offensive coordinator wanted to do.
That sucked. Yeah, that's really good. I like that take a lot.
That's exactly what it was. And it was so frustrating because people are like,
you are so bad. You're making an offensive coordinator.
Like, no, we're winning because Taylor Heineke is so limited.
Yeah.
Scott Turner can't do what he wants to do.
Bad. It defied all logic and math.
Well, I do think
coordinator better.
I do think that the adaptability is EB's biggest strength. And I think that you'll see that. You'll see that whatever it is that Sam Howell can do well, that's what he's going to do.
Yeah. And that we have been, when Scott Turner got hired in his introductory press conference, not quite the spectacle as Eric Bienemy's, he said that. He goes, my system will be, the strength. We're going to tailor our offense to the strength of the players. And we had Dwayne Haskins at the time. Yeah. And they did absolutely nothing to tweak Taylor anything towards Dwayne Haskins.
It was every quarterback that's been in our system has said, I've never played in a system like this. There's no audible.
Unfamiliar.
Yeah.
No audible.
And Marcus says what makes Andy Reid great is he lets his players and assistant coaches have input on the game plans, which is great. Yes. And we said this on the last 2 shows. So XFL is back upon us. We are big DC Defenders fans over here.
Yep.
And Jordan Ta'amu, he was on the Redskins, the Washington football team practice squad in 20, on the former chief. And what he did an interview here at a local DC radio station. And he said what he liked about Eric Bienemy was that for young players, when he was helping them to learn the playbook, he would call the play first and the formation last. That way, through enough repetition, the players will get the plays because plays are much easier to get and formations are harder, but they do enough of the play. They know by the time the play is over or being called, they know what the formation's going to be like.
Smart.
And if that's the creativity that we're going to get,
yeah. I mean,
die for that.
That's coaching. That's what they should be there to make the players better at their job. That is the whole point. And it feels like not just, in Washington, but in a lot of struggling NFL teams that they don't understand. Nice.
There you go, Oscar.
Defenders.
There you go, Oscar.
Defenders.
Defenders.
Yeah. Coaches around the league just don't seem to get that, if you don't have the guys to do the plays that you're trying to do, don't do those plays. Do the plays that those guys can actually execute and teach them. And it just doesn't seem like that happens a lot. I was a St. Louis Battlehawks guy, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess there's no team out. Is that the closest team out there?
Yeah.
St. Louis. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm
That's
not.
fair.
Okay, so you're familiar with our soon-to-be former backup quarterback.
I am.
He was your backup quarterback in St. Louis.
But he backed up Jordan. He backed up Jordan. Taylor Heineke was Jordan Tamu's backup quarterback.
Right, not the other way around. Yeah,
it's crazy. And then come 2020, Taylor running out of left field, I think
and now Jordan Ta'amu is quarterback of the Defenders.
You can't get a jersey either way. So
no,
right.
Taylor, I got to ask you this, man. It's a little bit, it's outside the Eric Bienemy question, but it's, we dealt with a lot of nonsense here in DC, and we've had a rebrand. We are no longer the Redskins. And do you guys still catch flack out there for being the Chiefs and the Chop? And what is the experience like out there for stuff like that?
I think we get as much as, certainly not as much as you guys did, certainly not as much as the Cleveland Indians, but we're kind of right there in that next tier below where the iconography of using Native American culture and the arrowhead and the chop and the headdress and all that stuff, that's certainly something that as time's moving forward, it's becoming less and last kosher. That's just how it's going. And I think that Kansas City fans, especially after seeing the rebrand of the Guardians and the Commanders, are understanding of if this does come down the pipe and if something does break someday and ownership decides to make a change or something like that, I think everyone here seems pretty receptive of the idea. Now, maybe not, I shouldn't say everyone, but certainly a good number of people would be receptive on a rebrand. As far as actually getting flack for it, I don't really see it come up a ton, maybe a little bit online with every now and then, but
I wanted to be named the Washington Fast Blacks, but nobody
Fast Blacks. Amazing.
Nobody wanted to.
Nobody was into that. That would have sold. You would have sold some jerseys for sure. You get the team talks to local tribes and kind of gets their point of view of basically they're asking them how offended are you about this? Is this a 2 out of 10 or is this a 9 out of 10? Where are we at the scale? And most of the time the team puts out responses that talk about, oh, well, the tribes understand that the chief was actually mayor of Kansas City, was nicknamed the Chief. And so the Kansas City Chiefs was not started as an Indian chief. It was started as the chief, mayor or something, but they leaned into the whole, the whole
that
scene
sounds like hard. What these Southerners down here where I'm from say to keep their rebel flags up.
That certainly does does sound similar.
Heritage,
yeah, that's right. Yep. Can't remove history and all that. Yeah,
I'll say this too. Ours was named after a Native American player we had on the team. Right.
I didn't know that.
That's where the original name came from. Now it was originally the Braves,
Boston Braves.
Sure,
Boston Braves.
Right.
But they were playing in Fenway, where the Red Sox played, and the Boston Braves were the crosstown rival.
Right.
So they said, "Well, we can't have you being the Braves playing in our stadium. You're going to play in their stadium." So instead of doing that, they changed it to Redskins. Now, I'm not going to get into all of it, but there's a guy in Hogs Haven who did an entire history on the word, and it really does kind of shoot a lot of the arguments in the foot about the name, but the name's gone. You're never going to get it back.
Well, and you can't give the history to everybody. All you can do is, the casuals can just look at the name and say Redskins. They're talking about the color of their skin.
That sounds racist.
I mean, it does sound
20
racist.
years out of 200, you can make that
definitely.
claim.
Sure.
I mean, you can't really just call a league full of black guys the Negro leagues anymore.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? I get it.
Doesn't fly.
Doesn't
fly like I used to. That's right.
I was at the grocery store one day, and this lady was like,
and
"You're
I
such
get
a handsome colored person." I'm like, "Huh?"
It's
unlike
2023.
other people. Unlike other people, I've actually been a little bit more embracive of Commanders because all the finalist names were bad.
Yeah, they were.
But this is the one I looked at and I'm like,
Red Wolves.
Red Wolves.
I never thought Redskins was
So
a slur.
hard.
You know what a slur is? Cowboys. That's a slur.
I got him. So we talked about this
That's a
pre-show,
slur.
but I hate the Cowboys more than probably any Chiefs fan I know.
Yes.
Got to get the dig in. They suck. Their fans suck. The team acts like they have, been the coolest thing since sliced bread.
And they never once paid for drugs. Not even once.
Not even once. Exactly right. No, they're the absolute worst. Real quick story. I was in Vegas and had to hit a parlay to win a bunch of money. And the last game was Chiefs Cowboys. And this was Alex Smith. And he threw we call it the Hail Mary. He threw a play to Tyreek Hill at 50-yard line. He ran around a bunch of Cowboys and scored. But I was watching with one Cowboys guy at the sports book, and when the Cowboys won, he was dancing around and Sundays are for the boys. And I lost a bunch of money. And literally from that moment on, I mean, I've never hated a fan base more. Not even the Chiefs rival fan bases. I am as anti-Cowboys they can get. So
no, you haven't met some of these University of Kentucky fans, man.
I have. I'm a KU basketball fan, so I mess with Kentucky fans all the time.
Yeah, man. As a Louisville guy, it's rough around here, man.
Ooh, Louisville, man. What has happened to them this year?
Yeah, we won the championship out of this place last time I looked. So.
Nice. Yeah, perfect.
Closing this down, Taylor, one more question for you.
Strippers?
I don't know how much you know about Sam Howell and his time at UNC and his kind of playing style. He came out in this year, but he was going to come out in 2021, and people had him pegged to be a first round talent easily. And then he loses his line, he loses his weapons, and he has not a bad year, but he has a less of a good year than prior. And then he all of a sudden dropped to the 5th round, and we picked him up. So he's very mobile. He's got some wheels. He has a great arm. I guess my question is, if Eric Bienemy, like Mark is saying, Eric Bienemy has been scouted him before. He's kind of familiar with him. And when he did introduce himself to Sam, he goes, I feel like I already know you.
Right.
So I guess he's been watching him. I watched a lot of Mahomes at Texas Tech. And I'm not saying Sam Howell has those tendencies, but they I say Patrick Mahomes plays a little more on the edge and like a controlled chaos, and it's just beautiful to watch. Yeah. But Sam Howell can run. He can make the throws on the move. He can't do the improvising like Patrick Mahomes. But with someone with the mobility and the arm of Sam Howell, do you think we got a shot to see something special, or at least something?
So I think first of all,
no.
No, yeah. The short answer is yes. But the prototype in the NFL these days is a running, big-armed quarterback. That is, somebody that can make all the throws, but can also escape pressure when they need to. That is, I mean, Lamar for sure, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Joe Burrow. These guys can scoot when they need to, but they're also extremely deadly with their arm. That you basically need both aspects of it. Tom Brady just doesn't really work these days anymore. Peyton Manning, that pure pocket passer. The edge rushers are too good, and there are going to be times that those pocket passers need to escape. And so I do think that you're starting from a baseline of like you almost have to have the Sam Howell skill set to even become competitive in the NFL. You really can't be less than him and be a competitive quarterback. And so far, just from the tape and the types of things that Sam Howell's put out there, he looks like he's capable of being a successful starting quarterback in the NFL, which is a high bar. I mean, that's a really hard thing to do. There's about 10 of them, really. Like it's a short list. And, I think that you have to have the right coaching and you have to have some skill players. You don't have to have a all pros all over the place, but you've got to have a guy or two, which certainly in Terry, he's got, that can bail you out of tough situations. And you've got to have coaches that are not afraid to dial up some stuff and design some stuff. And I think he's got the recipe to succeed, and he's got the backs. He's got, you know, two backs that if he wants to run a screen game, which Andy Reid is famous for his screen game, and if EB wants to go in there and say, you know what we're going to do, we're going to get these big hulks out in space, and we're going to throw them the ball, and we're going to let them run over you. And I mean, I think Sam Howell is perfectly capable of running that type of offense. And then if the defenses cheat up and they start, you know, overplaying the running backs, he can knock you out deep. So yeah, I think he's got the tools. I'd love to see him succeed, because I think that you know, first of all, Washington and the Chiefs have no bad blood, and second of all, EB's there and everything. So I mean, I think everyone in the kingdom has nothing but hope that the Commanders are going to go out there and put up a bunch of points. I think it'd be fun.
I will say this. I know you brought up Terry a lot, and I love Terry, and I think he's definitely earned the money he's got. And I think his best years are still ahead of him. But it's funny because there's a lot in our fan base who think that Jahan Dotson this year will be better.
Yeah, I wanted the Chiefs to draft him really bad. Love.
Thank you. No one in this fan base,
not me,
anywhere at the time of the draft were like, "Who is this guy?" And I
love.
Oh my God, they got Dotson.
Well, he's got such pop. I mean, he would. I watched some tape where, you know, he would scoot around some guys and take off, and I was like, "Who was that kid?" I mean, he stands out, and he had a great year last year. Obviously, was banged up, but I think that the flashes that he showed were wide receiver 1 in the NFL. I mean, he really showed a high ceiling.
He's this generation Santana Moss.
Oh,
he's got a lot of the exact same.
That's good.
He's got similar measurables. He's got the same skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Real shifty,
Wiggle.
real agile, and and for a guy who's sub 6 foot, will go up and attack the ball.
Yeah, got a vertical on him. And I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. See. I told y'all.
Yeah,
I wasn't the only one who was high on Dotson.
I was real high on Jahan. I was upset that that didn't work out for the Chiefs, because he's a dude.
Still wanted Kyle Hamilton. I'm glad we got Jahan Dotson.
Sure.
We wanted the next Sean Taylor, and you know, Kyle Hamilton went to the Ravens. Was it two picks ahead of us? We do.
He ended up okay at the end of the year, Al Hamilton.
Yeah, he did okay. Hey Taylor, thank you so much for joining us, man. This was fantastic. Always great talking ball with other players, other fans from other teams, especially when they're educated. You know your stuff, man. I got to give hats off to you. Thank you so much. And,
it was a pleasure. Absolutely. I'm rooting for you guys. I'm rooting for EB. And please, if you do nothing else, beat the Cowboys twice next year.
We can only hope so. So tell everyone where we can find you, where we can find Austin and your podcast.
It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom. And so any podcast app, type that in, just like the name, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but sub in Chiefs Kingdom. And we are at also It's Always Sunny in ChiefsKingdom.com. Twitter, he's Real Bird Lawyer after Charlie from Always Sunny. And I am Taylor_Witt, WITT on Twitter.
Fantastic. And Marcus says, everyone be blessed. Good night. Thank you for everyone in the chat that joined us. Marcus, Oscar, Cody, Marcus, Greg, Christopher McDaniel. Thanks for popping in, everyone. And Taylor, thank you once again, man. If you ever want to collaborate, we're always here for you. Like I said, I think Phil and I, the Chiefs are kind of like our side piece growing up. Lots of good memories with the Chiefs and Christian Okoye and his big old white neck brace he used to wear.
I appreciate the guys like Kimball Anders, man.
Yeah,
I like the secondary guys the Chiefs had. Those are the ones I really rooted for.
Yeah.
Chris says Amanda Blackhorse is coming after the Chiefs too. Watch out. I don't know who that is.
I don't either. I will.
I'll watch out. If she's an activist. She might be.
Sounds like an activist.
Oh man, she probably was heavily involved with the Redskin stuff. Yeah, I mean, you know.
I feel like if your last name is a Blackhorse and you're not on Pornhub, then you wasted that name, bro.
What are you doing?
I love it.
What a waste.
Yeah, like I don't know what kind of Indian are you? No.
Yeah. All right, we're going to close this one down here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to Taylor, and thank you to It's Always Sunny in Chiefs Kingdom podcast. Make sure you go check them out on all of your audio podcast platforms. They're the reigning Super Bowl champs. We all, we just want to be like you guys. And I think if Ron Rivera keeps following the Andy Reid model and making it his own, we got a shot. So thank you for tuning in, everyone. If you're catching us on the replay, please go like and subscribe. Share with everyone. Make sure you go follow Taylor and his podcast crew, him and Austin. And we'll catch you guys on the next time on Thursday. Maybe not. We'll let you guys know. But stay tuned. As always, peace and hail. We out.